Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Are we excited to be here? We're in person. Yay! We are doing an in-person event and we are excited to be here. And I'm Marvin Krislov, I'm the president, and I'm really excited to introduce our guest speaker. I want to say a big thank you to Larry Singleton, our wonderful dean. Yay, Larry. Thank you. And his wonderful team, and I'm not going to name them all, but they can wave their hands and we'll acknowledge them. Can the team just give them, yay. And I think we have some faculty here. Are there faculty here? Yes, yes, yay, thank you, faculty. We're so glad you're here. So our guest speaker today, Tony Kuczinski, is one of our really, really terrific, distinguished alums. He is here to share his thoughts about the world and the world of insurance. And there's so many things that I think, as you will discover, and I'm constantly learning more. That's one of the things that I think I hope a PACE education teaches you, is that you can continue learning even when you get sort of old. And one of the things that Tony Kuczinski really teaches us is about how insurance touches every aspect of our life and how we can have meaningful and interesting careers in insurance in a way that maybe some of us hadn't thought about. And so we're really pleased to have Tony Kuczinski here today with our wonderful dean. And Tony has a great experience, wealth of experience, 30 years at Munich Reinsurance. Today, he's president and CEO of Munich Re America and is a board member or board chair of several related companies. But most importantly, he is a dedicated PACE alum who says that PACE changed his life. I'll let him tell that to you himself. And he also is someone who really believes in giving back. And we're so fortunate to have him as part of our family. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kat Calico. I'm the president of Beta Gamma Sigma. I'm a senior business management student at the Forsheimer's Honors College here at PACE. On behalf of the Office of Dean, the Lubin Office of Communications and External Relations, Beta Gamma Sigma, I would like to welcome you all to Lubin's Executive in Residence event. The Executive in Residence program has been in existence at Lubin for over 30 years and is part of the many unique ways Lubin leverages New York locations to connect students with real business and business leaders. Today, we have a very special executive with us. We've already heard a little bit about him. His name is Tony Kuczinski. He's a PACE alum and the president and CEO of Munich Reinsurance America, where he's worked for over 30 years. He's an overall responsibility for Munich Re's property and casualty reinsurance and specialty insurance businesses in the US. With respect to community service, Mr. Kuczinski is a trustee and chair of Penn Medicine at Princeton, former vice chair and treasurer of Princeton Healthcare Foundation, and the former chair of the board of Eden Autism Services, an organization that provides service and supports to individuals with autism and their families. Thank you. In addition to having Mr. Kuczinski with us today, we are delighted that Lubin's Dean Lawrence G. Singleton will be interviewing him. Prior to becoming the Dean of Lubin, Dr. Singleton was previously Dean and Professor of Accounting and International Business in the School of Management at Marist College in New York. He was also a faculty member at George Washington University's School of Business, where he held many leadership positions, including Associate Dean for undergraduate programs. The scope of Dean Singleton's leadership spans a wide spectrum. He founded Singleton Associates LLC, which provides consulting and training services to professional service firms, corporations, not-for-profit organizations, and government agencies. Dr. Singleton is a certified public accountant and a chartered global management accountant. Received his PhD, MS, and BS degrees in accounting from Louisiana State University. Dean Singleton will begin interviewing Mr. Kuczinski momentarily. I'd like to announce that we have guests joining us via Zoom. If you are joining us through Zoom and have a question that you'd like to ask Mr. Kuczinski during the Q&A segment of the program, please place your question in the chat and the moderator will ask the question on your behalf. Without further delay, let's welcome Dean Singleton and our executive in residence, Anthony Kuczinski.
Thank you, Kat. Thank you for the introduction. Welcome. Let me begin the questioning by asking you to talk a little about your position. I think that probably a lot of people in this room don't really understand what the meaning insurance is. Talk a little about that and how it differs from traditional insurance.
Sure. Every insurance, well, I assume most people know what insurance is. So insurance is a vehicle that takes risk That's what they do. They take risk off of you, from you, whether it's your personal risk, a business risk, life insurance. Think of a risk that any one of us might have. That insurance company is there to take some of that burden from you, especially when things don't go so well. Every one of those insurance companies that we all do business with also buy what we call reinsurance. So what we do is kind of like a wholesale business. We sell risk protection to the insurance company. So they might insure every single person in this room and the people on Zoom. But at the end, they take all of those accumulated risks and say, wow, that's a lot of risk they're taking on. If something should go wrong, how would I pay for it? They would come to a company like us and we would charge them, a premium and take some of that risk off their balance sheet so that if that event should occur, we respond. Think of it this way, we take on big accumulations of risk. We're all familiar with Hurricane Ida that just came through not too long ago. That would be a perfect example of something that we would reinsure. Right? As an industry, that was a big event. It will cost the industry a lot of money to pay for the losses resulting from Hurricane Ida. As a reinsurance industry, we will have a very big share of that.
Thank you very much. So, you currently serve as CEO. Can you tell us a little bit about your current role at Munich Reinsurance America?
So even though the name says Munich Re Reinsurance America, and then I'm the CEO of Munich Re. Munich Re is a global reinsurance company with multiple parts. One of the biggest in the world, the company biggest in the world, with locations everywhere imaginable. As a U.S. part of that organization, U.S. is probably the single biggest business they have across the globe. I have responsibility for all of what Munich Re does, both in the insurance, specialty insurance space, and in the reinsurance space for Munich Re here in the U.S. So that includes insurance and reinsurance. But in our case, most of the insurance is specialty in nature. We don't do standard homeowners insurance. We don't do standard automobile insurance. We would do those risks that even an insurance company would find to be somewhat of a specialty. And that's the kind of stuff that we'll step into because we have deep expertise in that. So it's somewhere in the range of we'll close this year somewhere around $9 billion in revenue as our U.S. enterprise, part of a $50+ billion revenue for the entire Munich Re. We have an employee base in the range of 5,000 employees around the country, which includes a little bit in the UK, a little bit in Canada as well. It's not just the US. We have a balance sheet that's pretty substantial, so we can take on the risk that we take on and be there the next day after we pay those claims. So it's a big organization. If it were a Fortune, if Munich Re, the parent company, were a Fortune 500 company, which it's not, it would probably rank in the top 25. That's how big the organization is.
You've done numerous roles with the organization. Talk about your various roles and you progressed along the way.
Yeah, I came in, we should also talk about why I came into this industry, but which I'd love to talk about. But since I've been with Munich Re Group for 32 years. When I first joined the group, it was not Munich Re. We weren't owned by Munich Re. Munich Re came in and acquired the company back in '97. So I joined around '89. What was then was then called American Reinsurance Company, predominantly a reinsurer. We didn't do much specialty insurance, although we did a little bit. And over the years, it grew into what it is today through acquisitions, through organic growth, and so on. As I said, Munich Re bought us in 1997, and since then, it has just continued to transform. The roles I had when I first joined the organization, I came into the finance organization. I was effectively the treasurer of the organization, the American Re, and over time moved into various other roles, including we had our financial consulting practice, which we went out and consulted with other insurance companies on either a deal structure or some opportunity they might have been looking at, maybe some third party to help them there. So I've done financial roles, I have done consulting roles, I took on operational roles, and then eventually I got the opportunity to run a business unit. And from that point forward, the trajectory has just kept going for me. And ultimately, in in 2007, Munich Re asked me to step up to become the CEO of the entire US, which is the world we know. And it is not, it has been, I mean, for those of you who think that business just is every day, the same thing every day, I can promise you it has been anything but. And if you have any sort of inquisitiveness about you, well, I've had roles that allowed me to learn my entire life. I continue to learn every single day. So I'm blessed that I've been able to do all this. And I need some of the best people you'll ever see in this industry, really, really good people.
With technology, things have changed a lot. Have you seen the insurance industry evolve from when you first started?
So Munich Re acquired us in 1997. This should give you some really good perspective, especially I know how technology savvy all of you are. So American Re at the time was in the top 3 in size of reinsurers in the United States back then. Munich Re, who was coming to acquire us, was the top 1 or 2 or 3 in the world, right? So that gives you some perspective of the size of the company. So that they made this acquisition at that point in time. We didn't have email. There was no email. It was just not even thought of. And as a German company coming into the US, they did things very differently than we did in the US. So that's the evolution. If you talk about technology, I'm talking about a company not too long ago that really had a lot of growing to do. I said I didn't say this, but I joined the insurance industry from public accounting in 84, I think it was. And the company that I joined, an insurance company, didn't have one PC in the entire company. Not one PC. I'm talking about PC, forget about tablets. So that's the environment I grew up in. Today, the world is different. You heard the term of insurtech or fintech, right? Those are the companies out there trying to change the world with technology and other things. Well, I don't think they have had their intent was to totally disrupt the insurance industry. I don't believe they actually disrupted the insurance industry, but I believe they have made the insurance industry better, smarter, and more focused. And those of us who really saw the threat and saw the fact that this has to happen have really changed the organization dramatically. So today, you name the technology we're using, you name the social media we're using. This is a company, like I said, that started out with really bare knuckles in terms of technology and an industry that was in the same place. The technology was always process oriented. Something comes in the door, you put it into the system, and it comes out the back end. That was it. We didn't use it for information. We didn't use it to predict things. We didn't forget about analytics, forget about things like artificial intelligence. We're using all of that today in this industry, and it has changed the industry dramatically.
Well, coming out of the pandemic, you look at the pandemic overall. What kind of solutions, creative solutions, have you seen in your industry for that?
Two things come to mind. This is not a solution, this is more of a response. We, as many companies in our industry, but our industry as well as many other industries, were really built on in-office presence for the most part. We had about 10-15% of employees that were remote because of the job nature, whatever they were doing. It made sense that they could work out of home and travel and travel. But the bulk of our employee base was basically office-based. And although we had good technology, we have never had to test how good and reliable that technology would be if all of a sudden threw everybody outside the office and said, okay, you can still access everything you need to access. But we had to do that. Every industry had to do that. But I will tell you, I was unbelievably surprised, and I'm not that easy to surprise, but I was unbelievably surprised how easily we actually adapted to a complete remote environment. We actually grew our business. We actually made more client contacts and visits. Our employees were meeting more often, and more levels of employees were getting in on those meetings because it was easier to include more people because everything was virtual. So this wasn't a solution. It was really more about how we adapted to a world environment that changed dramatically, and I believe will change us going forward forever. That's a business side. From an insurance side, from a product that we offer, if you want to think about something solution-oriented, this industry, people don't know this, but this industry took a lot of losses as a result of the pandemic. Whether it was event cancellation covers, whether it was premature deaths because of life policies that we have on the books and people die a lot quicker than they expected to be dying, or if there was a property or other liability exposure that was specifically covered, that would have been related to a cause of event that was, let's say, the pandemic. We were responding to all those things as an industry. At the same time, the industry was trying to work with the federal government to come up with a solution for the next pandemic. It never came about. There was a lot of talk, a lot of back and forth in it. But the industry was really trying to say, okay, we should not be surprised by a pandemic. And the fact that it happened, we should expect that we're going to see this as a way of life going forward. And we should be ready next time. There's no reason why the world needs to shut down the next time this happens. That was a dangerous place for the world at the time. So we're trying to work as an industry, and we brought lots of players together to work with the federal government on various solutions on what would you do next time. It never really came about, but there was at least a desire to create solutions. You know, like everything else, sometimes memories are short-lived, and it's like, okay, it's not that important anymore because it's out past us, but unfortunately, it is something we should be thinking about. There are a lot of other solutions we have, but related to the pandemic, I think that can be that.
Let me actually step back. You were a high school student growing up, and how you chose to come to PACE and how that has influenced your choices for your career.
I'm one of 9 siblings, 10 siblings, 10 of us. I have 9 siblings. So I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, and I grew up in a low-end, very low-end middle-class family. We worked for a living. That's what we did. Totally blue collar. Parents never went to college. Half my siblings didn't go to college. I was always a pretty good student, I must say. I've always enjoyed school, but I also had life circumstances that kind of got in the way. But I always had this desire to go to school. When I finally got to PACE, I was one-dimensional. And by the way, I did go to a community college for PACE. So that was mainly because of convenience, because I could still work almost full time and do my college studies and so on. But then I had this decision to make: where do I go from here? And I ultimately decided PACE. I continued to work while I was going to school. It was a community school for me at the time. I was one-dimensional. My focus when I was at PACE, and I was in accounting major. I was in the CPA program, and I was determined to A, be one of the first in my family to graduate, B, to graduate with the best scores I can possibly graduate with, and to really have something come from that. And for me, in that major, it meant public accounting firms, which to me was like changing a life for me. It was like going from what was to what could possibly be. PACE afforded me that opportunity. It afforded me the ability to A, be in the category, to be in the lineup to possibly get selected. I went through the interview process and ultimately made a decision to join one of the big, at that time, big 8 accounting firms. And I never looked back because, quite frankly, I don't think that would have been. And that was just one of those life moments to say, it's because I chose that school, I chose that program, and I was engaged in it, that it afforded me the opportunity. And since then, it's been, I meet people all the time, more than I ever expected, to be honest, that are in business or in other fields that went to PACE. And I said, hey, great, there's always that common bond when we get to talk to each other. So anyway, it's changed my life dramatically. I know that every one of the students here, you're not all sitting in the same place, and we don't all come here thinking, okay, here's my world, here's what it looks like. You should be always thinking about what you want to do, but also thinking about what could be. And I would strongly suggest you allow opportunities to emerge when they do and take advantage of them. I thought
That's good. So much business like that. People who went to school for obviously. We still have provided us with opportunities. It's not going to be before all the big firms, all the networks come to as they do many issues. There's lots of opportunities. Let me ask you about some of the successes and setbacks you encountered in your career. Could you talk about a few of those on the outside end?
If I talk about all of them, we would be here for days because life is a journey. Life is not constant, it's not static. I've taken risks in my career. that worked out really well, and I've taken risks in my career that didn't quite work out so well. But I think you always learn more from the downs than the ups. I'm of that view. And to me, part of success is learning to get up again and try again and keep going at it. So I'll current role in now. Did I really expect, given where I started, did I really expect that Munich was actually Munich Re, the parent company, was actually looking at me to run the US? Did I actually think I could do that? In fact, I remember being tapped on the shoulder by my boss at the time, the current CEO, and said, this was early December. Can you be in Munich 2 weeks from now? Call this person, call that person. They told me exactly what they wanted from me. They said, okay, come and join us. And what I didn't know was that was my interview. I didn't know that. But I went in, I didn't take it lightly. They're calling me in and they want to talk to me about something. I'll be as prepared as I can be. There was no structure to it. It was just about conversation, right? I say that because the truth is, there were so many things you think were opportunities when they're not, and sometimes when all of a sudden there is an opportunity that just came out. And this one I think came out. But I always put myself in a position of going beyond the comfort zone. So that's what I mean by it. I think of opportunities is sometimes when I put myself out there, I might have gone a little bit too far and I pulled back a little bit. So okay, let me not push so hard. But there are other times I said I was glad I did open up my field of vision a little bit because I was willing to take a risk on something and I found someone willing to take a risk on me. And both of those meet a part of the equation. And if that happens, then you get the best you can and you move forward. I actually resigned from my company twice before I was actually given the opportunity to run a company. Why? Because I got to a point in my career where it just wasn't working for me. Something was missing, something I just wasn't being motivated anymore. And in both instances, same CEO, by the way, I was working with the same CEO at the time. In both instances, that same CEO convinced me to stay. The second time was the more relevant one because it was shortly after that that he left the organization, which created an unbelievable opportunity for me, not for this role, but led to this role. You just don't know sometimes. What I've really learned over the career is when you fail on something, you keep going. Reach out for help when you think you need it. There's nothing wrong with asking a silly question. There's nothing wrong with maybe taking adverse opinion from someone else because you feel strongly about your view. And sometimes you're going to get slapped for that, or it's not going to feel so good. But hopefully, it doesn't happen too often. You just roll with it. So okay, I'm going to become. I'll take that one. But you sometimes put too much trust in a person or people. Happened to me many times. I've had to correct it by either unfortunately parting company with somebody that just disappointed us as an organization too much, or me as the person responsible too much. Those are never easy to do, but sometimes you make mistakes with people or with an approach, and you have to back off. This pandemic, I would say, has been a constant learning experience, with all of us who knew at it. What's the right thing to do? How do we get our people back? How do we incentivize them to be here and feel comfortable coming back? And I've had a view going in. I've had somebody tell me, nope, you got to check your view a little bit because maybe that's a little bit too strong. Or maybe it's too weak and you need to push a little bit harder. So I've failed small failures, never devastating to my career, but small failures all across the way, but lots of successes along the way. And I think you don't get home enough yet. Somebody said, if you never fail, you didn't try hard enough. You have to be willing to try. If you fail and you can learn from it and move forward, it helps them all around. So,
Very good. Thank you. Well, beyond your work at Munich Re, you served the insurance industry through participation in a number of other organizations. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. The beauty of coming with the CEO of what's considered to be a fairly respectable company, fairly big in the industry, is you get lots of opportunities. People, either they're asking you, or if you want to do something, then they're always willing to maybe have you join. And I've never really got involved with any industry stuff until mid more later in my career, because I felt an obligation to the industry, and I felt an obligation to get back to the industry and try to shape it in a way that I think would make us all as an industry move proud. So many years ago, maybe I'm going to say 10 plus years ago. I was asked to join the Reinsurance Association of America, which is a lobbying and an affinity group for the reinsurance industry, very small cottage kind of community association. I ultimately became the chairman of that organization and helped to shape their organizational and their focus going forward. I just came off of the role as chair of the APCIA, which was a merger for the first time of two organizations that serve the insurance industry, the AIA on one side, the PCI on the other side. And I actually introduced the concept of bringing these two organizations together because the industry had too many of these lobbying groups out there. And when you have too many people talking about a topic, it tends to dilute the topic. So it was much more important to start to get these things aligned. And to my, I guess, surprise, both organizations were ready to have this discussion. We ultimately pulled them together. I spent 2 years kind of bringing it to its current form structure. So those are two examples of things that I'm doing. I serve on advisory boards in various risk management communities and so on.
You sort of make the insurance industry sound like a very attractive career opportunity for students. What advice do you have for students as to how best to prepare themselves following your perspective?
Let me start with this. I'll guarantee that probably 10% of the people in this room that maybe 90% of the people in this room that would say, in the insurance industry, well, I don't want to work in the insurance industry. And I promise you, I was in your same place early in my life. Let me start with a bold statement about the industry and then tell you my experience. I believe the insurance industry is a noble industry. It does really good things. It's involved in more things than you could ever imagine. For those of you who have economics courses, macroeconomics in particular, if you've heard the term Adam Smith, invisible hand, I would say the insurance industry is like Adam Smith's invisible hand to capitalism, for a capitalistic society, for a society that's built on business and risk and so on. Why do I say it's invisible hand? Because think of anything that would happen, any sort of progress that would happen without risk associated with it. Almost nothing. Would someone build a skyscraper if they weren't insured if God forbid something went wrong? Would we own homes? Would we drive a car? Would we establish that new business? Almost nothing we can think of happens without risk. And prudent people try to protect that risk when they know they have it. And that's what we do. So that's what's invisible hand about it. So when the wind blows, for example, the Ida storm that just came through all the way from New Orleans, all the way up through the Northeast. That is going to be in the range of a $25 to $40 billion event, insured event for the industry. Probably a bigger event for economic reasons, but 25 to 40 for the industry. Well, the industry is there to pay those losses for everybody that lost something along the way. And life goes on for everybody that had those risks insured because the industry was there to respond. But I didn't know this when I was younger. I also didn't know that the insurance industry has, if you name the career, and let's mostly on the business side, but even in nursing, even in some healthcare industries, even in all kinds of marketing and communications roles, you name it. If there is a major that you're taking in school, in the business school, or in the large university, I'd be willing to bet there's something you can do with that in the insurance industry. I didn't know this either. We employ lots of different people for lots of different skill sets. In many cases, it's very unique to our industry, but more and more it's becoming a commodity for every industry. Think about analytics, think about artificial intelligence, think about technology, think about communications, think about social justice issues, think about climate change. I mean, just name the topic, we're involved in that business. So for me, this industry continues to intrigue me and continues to make me feel good about the work that we do. But when I went to public accounting, there's a New York City-based firm. I was assigned to most of my clients, or most insurance company clients. I remember going to my scheduling partner and telling them about 3 years into my work there, asking them, why are you putting it on all these insurance company clients? I don't want to be an insurance company. I really vehemently was trying to push back as much as I could about being in the industry. And they respected me, so they actually allowed me to change my client profile and put me on a whole lot of other clients that were not insurance related, but they put me on one new one. Long story short, that was a very difficult client. I learned a lot from the client, and ultimately they offered me a job to leave the public accounting firm to go to work in this insurance company, and I never looked back. Never looked back. Because I learned so much, I saw so much, I enjoyed the people I worked with, I enjoyed the value proposition that we had as a company and continue to have in the industry. And opportunities were immense. I saw the world from so many different perspectives. I've been just about everywhere in the world, all in the insurance business. And again, this is a guy who comes from a relatively very humble background where getting on a plane wasn't even an option when I was growing up. And here I am seeing every part of the world. It just gave me perspective in life and the world that I just never. I would encourage you, keep your options open, keep your mind very open, because life is a journey. And take advantage, listen to things you might not have thought you'd be interested in. Take a chance. I know several people in this room already that also probably have had these experiences. They do. I didn't want to do that, but guess what? I'm glad I did. I would offer you to at least think about the insurance industry in any field that you're in.
You've also done a lot of community service and believe in giving back to the community. We talked a bit about some things that you've done.
I think you already mentioned a couple of them, but I ultimately, our company, the U.S. piece that I'm responsible for, we're largely based in Princeton. You have locations all over the country, but we're largely in Princeton, New Jersey, and we always believe in the community. We're part of the community, so we should give back to the community. I ultimately joined the board. I had no, at least up at that point in time, I had no one in my family that had autism or had autism issues in the family. Since then, by the way, a few in this expanded family that I'm part of. But back then, I had nobody that was afflicted by autism, but I was asked to join the board to give them some business expertise that they didn't have. And when I joined that board, like I do with everything else, I go all in. And so if I'm going to join the board, I want to get to know a little bit more about autism and how it works and effectively what you're doing around autism. And when we want to talk about some brave and courageous people, the parents of people with autism, especially the very severe cases of autism, and the caregivers for that group of people, my God, I said, okay, I need to be involved in this. I ultimately became their chairman. I ultimately helped them to raise some money and to get a new facility and things like that because it was something I just felt passionate about. And in fact, all the time, just because of the experience of it. Second community effort that actually has blossomed much more than I ever thought it would, was I was asked, I did similar kind of thing for the local hospital, Princeton Health. It was called Princeton Medical Center at the time. Princeton University, by the way, did not have a medical school or medical hospital, but it was a community-based hospital. Ultimately, I joined their board and ultimately asked me to become chair of that board, but they also merged with Penn Medicine, one of the biggest medical institutions in the country, in the world, probably top 10. And I'm also on their board, so I sit on the broader board and I chair the local board. And I'm learning every single day about the life and the way you run a hospital, and the way people in the medical field think and all that kind of stuff. And again, for me, it's about giving back what I can give back in terms of my business expertise in a field of unbelievably smart people that really hope to keep us all alive and healthy in this world. So it's just one of those things where I just felt it's my obligation to do that. And of course, I get involved in things like this. And wherever I can, I think it's, there's a term called pay it forward. Well, I believe strongly in that. If you can give an opportunity, why would you not try to find a way to give it back? I have a big family that I do that with too. I said I have 9 siblings. My close family is 45, 50 people, and everybody's coming from different places. So I give a lot of time there too, and my energy, but I love doing it with people I don't even know.
We'd like to take a few minutes to give people in the audience a chance to ask questions. Anybody here would like to ask a question, please raise your hand and we'll bring a microphone to you.
We have our first one. Thank you. I always find in these kind of forums, you're the brave one, and that's going to start from there. Oh, sorry.
You talked about in December you became CEO. I was just wondering, was that December 2019?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was definitely confused. No, I'm in my role 14 years.
Oh,
The second, I was told in 2007 is what I said. I think that's the
no,
necessary.
I probably would have said like that.
But I was told I was going to have a role 1 year before I had it, and for half the year I couldn't even tell anybody I had it. But I loved it because you know why? I was able to shape the vision of the company without being the guy in charge. But I knew what role I was taking on, and it's amazing how all of a sudden when you think with the ball, they don't give you the same answers as when they think you're fear. And I love the fact that I was in the fear role a little bit of time to shape it before it happens. So anyway.
And I just have another question. You talked about how technology is advancing has more jobs opened up since technology and social media have become more like prominent, I guess, like social media, like management and everything like that.
So I don't know if this is the root of your question, but we're constantly looking for people. Whether it's directly related to change in technology or not, I can't really answer the question. But I know people, let's say the incumbents, people who work for a company now, let's just say you're in a role, I'm asking you to use technology to change your role. One of the things people get concerned about, well, then what happens to me? And I try to tell people, try to tell everybody is, listen, I don't know the time in the world where someone or something happened where all of a sudden there was less work available. The work might change, but the work is not. We as a country, and the farming industry comes to mind, we as a country have a lot more technology available to farmers than we ever had. But farms are still prospering. They're just changing their everything. When you think about assembly lines in automobiles that was originally manual, it didn't change, changed the type of the job. And the same thing happens in our industry. As technology helps us to be better and smarter, we need different types of people that know that technology maybe, but the output of that technology is something we want to use. And how do you use that? That's a new job that's been formed. So it's hard for me to say technology has created more jobs. I would say I'm more the school that technology changes jobs. What creates more jobs is growth. What creates more jobs is more opportunity. And so long as we're a growing, prosperous, thriving organization, we're going to have more jobs.
Hi.
Hi.
You spoke quite a bit about your autism advocacy. I was wondering, like, if you have any specific organizations that you're passionate about, or like ones that you recommend for people to look into.
Well, the one I would recommend, if you want to look into it, is a place called Autism, not Autism Speaks, Even Autism. They're located in Princeton. The address is Princeton, New Jersey. And they are more of a school and a facility for people with autism. But they largely focus on those that are at the really top end of the spectrum. But they take residents and or students from beyond the New Jersey area, if you're willing to make a commute to the school to get people there. So I would give you that as an aim. And if that doesn't work for you, I would tell you that's a small community. And I'm not involved with them anymore, just to be clear. They're a small community, so if they couldn't help, you had somebody that you wanted to put them in touch with. If they couldn't help, I am quite sure they would give you names of places or organizations that could definitely help. If that's part of the question. If it's about just getting involved, they're always looking for good people. And if they don't have the need, I'm sure they recommend others that might. Small community.
Thank you.
Mhm. This is the best part, so I love this.
Hi. So After finding out that it was 2007 that you started as CEO, how the effect of the financial crisis?
So we had two crises that affected our industry. I'm going to call it two crises. Well, if you want to call the World Trade Center events a crisis, that was another one. But let's go from 2007. The financial crisis in our case was mostly opportunity, not crisis. And I'll tell you why. I said I'm responsible for reinsurance and insurance. When I took on my role, this was the beauty about that 2007 and 2008 time period. They told me in January of 2007 that effective 1/1/2008 I was going to be new CEO. And with that, they said, we want to see from you your blueprint of what things look like in 10 years from now. I was given an opportunity to literally work across the ocean, across the US to say, these are the things I see coming, and these are things that I think we can do something about. And one of the things I was talking about, and that was changing from just a reinsurer to the specialty insurer. And with the crisis, so I started my role in 2007 in April of 2008. So January of 2008. In April 2008, we made our first acquisition because of that blueprint. We had our first acquisition in a specialty company. And 1 year later, 2009, right in the middle of the crisis, we were able to buy a company, Hartford Steam Boiler, part of our group right now, which was owned by AIG at the time. AIG was in crisis. They needed to sell something. We had our sights on that company for a long time. And because our credit rating during the crisis went as high as it could possibly go, while the seller's credit rating diminished dramatically, and that created a perfect buying opportunity for an asset that probably never would have been available to us.
Wow.
But we didn't lose our cool. We kept our focus, knowing that we had no reason to be concerned. I mean, the world around us was falling apart, don't get me wrong. There was lots of things to be nervous about, but our business was sound. And it created an opportunity for us. That company today is continuing to do unbelievable good things for us. And it's part of the reason why we've been able to change who we are and what we are as United as well. So there you go. Would I have loved to have bought that company 2 years before? Yes. 5 years before? Yes. Was it available? No. We kept our sights on it. Got to a conversation. It was perfect timing. We were ready to go. And we moved this big, you could argue, bureaucratic organization moved like lightning to make it happen. It happened in a matter of months. So I would tell you it was opportunity for us, even though around us things were falling apart.
Same with COVID, or
COVID, I would tell you.
that wasn't in the blueprint.
No. COVID was not in the blueprint. The concept of a pandemic has always been something the industry talks about. The pandemic itself is not something, it's not a black swan event, something you would never ever expect, right? No, it's more like a gray rhino kind of event. But we insured things that went in our process for insuring and reinsuring things. And I'll give you an example of event coverage, because I understand lots of these big events around the world by event cancellation companies. And we, not just us, but we and many companies in our industry supported those event cancellation companies. And with all the process around underwriting for those events, what could go wrong, what are we covering, and what happens if this happens? I don't think anybody ever thought about what if a pandemic happens around the world and every event, every major event cancels. That became a big event for the industry. And it's all reported numbers, it's not a secret. So that took us, didn't take us by surprise, but it was a big number. I talked about life insurance, how life insurance in normal course is a very mathematical, analytically driven product. You have a sense of mortality, you have a sense of what diseases are out there, but when something like a pandemic comes along, all of a sudden the life industry is significant. We didn't expect to have several million deaths in a given year, as many as we had. It affects the industry. That affects us as a reinsurer of that industry. That affects the industry as a whole. So I would tell you, we responded to, in the case of, the only reason I'm not putting the pandemic as an opportunity, I think we learned a lot. That's the opportunity. but we also got hit a lot as an industry. But that's what we're there for. We did it, we responded, it temporary setback at the rule, and we just kept moving forward. So, I hope that answers it.
I have a question on Zoom.
Someone coming into the chat,
Yeah.
we take one from there and we'll put it on. That's how we keep coming in.
Okay, this is a question from Zoom. The person is asking, how will the current inflationary pressures in our economy, supply chain bottlenecks and labor shortages affect insurance in the future?
Whoever that person is, come and talk to us about a job. That's a great question. Or anybody can come talk to us about a job. But that's a valid question. So in our business, the only business that I know of, we charge a premium. It's revenue for most companies, but it's premium based upon all estimates. Here's the premium we're going to charge you for the risk we're taking. We think we're taking. We think it's going to cost us this kind of money. We think it's going to have this kind of an impact. And if we collect enough premium, we should have enough money to pay that loss. But when we do that, we assume certain constants. And one of the constants is inflation will behave the way it behaved before. Well, if inflation changes, and so do all the assumptions we made about the premium we're charging. So to answer your question in a very specific way, it is always something you have to be thinking about. And when inflation goes faster than we thought it was going to, whether it's property related, because an event happened and there was a shortage of lumber, or real inflation because everything just got more expensive, that can hurt the industry. That can hurt the industry because some of those claims take a long time to develop, and when you compound that inflationary impact, it could have a very negative impact on the outcome. But that's the risk business we're in. So smart people in our company are helping us to figure out how do we react to this. And we do that all the time. So it's a great question. It's a great question. It's to the core of what we sell as a product. But we can't shy away from it because of inflation, or we wouldn't be able to, we wouldn't have a business.
First off, I want to say thank you because I'm pretty sure the board that the hospital that you're the board of, I was born there. So
There you
fun
go.
fact.
Which one? Princeton Health? Or-
Yeah, Princeton Health,
So you live somewhere in New Jersey?
Somerset, New Jersey.
There you
Born
go.
and
Hey,
raised.
hey, hey.
My question for you is, I'm here with my accounting class. We're an accounting major. Do you still know the accounting equation?
No. You mean actually assets equals liability plus capital? No.
Yes, that's exactly it. That was amazing. Thank you.
Okay. But I will tell you this, you have a better shot of passing the CPA exam than I do. Even though I did it, I couldn't do it today, and I couldn't get the CFO today because the world that you're learning in is different than the world I learned in. I know enough. I know enough to ask the question. I wouldn't say I know enough to be the guy that's making those decisions for the world. So go for it.
Hi. So my question is,
We're okay.
yeah, my question is, if you were to come to case again, but in like 2021, do you think you would still take the same path, or would technology steer you in a different direction,
Wow.
or social media?
It's a great question. So what would I tell the younger me then, today? I think that's kind of the question. But I would say, with everything I know, I'd probably take the same path. And this is my reason. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I came to college thinking I wanted to be a lawyer. That was the first thing.
Yeah, that's.
There you go. And as I started going through my studies, I took one accounting course just by fluke. Truthfully, I started as a liberal arts major and then changed to a accounting major. I took one accounting course and said, wow, that's pretty easy. It felt easy, right? Another one, and said, wow, it doesn't seem that difficult. And then I made the rationalization in my head, said, I can still become a lawyer, but I can start with accounting. So I changed my major to accounting. So I'm just telling you this because I don't know, I don't think I would have changed anything because my plan was not set. It was directional, but not rigid. And I changed along the way. And once I got into the business world, I said, okay, I'm in a profession. I was in the accounting profession. It's high charged. It's it's a very professional environment. It's you work hard, you earn your stripes, and no different than if I was in a law firm. Similar kind of concept. After a while, I just said, I don't want to be a lawyer anymore. I don't want to go in that path. I changed directions again. I said, but I also don't want to be an accountant anymore. So I would tell you, the younger we are, the less, I would say, take advantage of experimenting and don't be so locked in. You don't know what that thing is that will all of a sudden change your mind on something, right? So have a purpose, have a sense, but don't be so locked in. I can tell you I was not. I'm so thankful that I wasn't, because it helped me not just in school, but helped me in my career. I'm going to try some things that nobody thinks I can do. Let me see if I can do it. So I don't think it would change anything. Maybe I would have had a different view of where careers are going or something, but I don't know.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. So I have two questions. Firstly, how does a reinsurance company have a backup? As in, is there something as a reinsurance company? And my second question is, as a born leader yourself, how did you push yourself for about 14 or 15 years before finally getting into a leadership position? How did you manage in a corporate company, and what were some of the stresses that you came across?
A lot of questions. The easiest one is the first one you started with. So you asked the question, what does a reinsurance company do? And I explained it as we reinsure insurers. But you're right. I'm also an insurer. And we call that retro, called retro reinsurance. So it means if I believe that when I look at all the risks that I've accumulated, I think I have too much risk, I can go out and find a reinsurer to take some of that risk. As the biggest in the industry, we don't rely very much on that. We rely on our own models, our own sense of diversification, and how the probabilities of those numbers will work out. And for the most part, we don't buy the backup. We are the backup. But we have a big balance sheet. And we're really strict on keeping our accumulations within tolerance levels that we think we could get hit and get up and fight again. That's our mantra. And if we can't do that, then we have failed as a business. So I would tell you, yes, we have it available. We do buy a little bit, but we don't depend on it. The part about what did you learn or being part of the corporate environment?
Probably you didn't get that easy.
No, but I will also tell you the more difficult one. I always had in my heart and in my head that I wanted to be successful, but I didn't necessarily define that to be this or that. So I didn't say, hey, if somebody said to me when I was first getting into business, will you be the CEO? I would have said it more in a, yeah, I'd like to be the CEO, but I wasn't like sitting there every day thinking about that. And then I realized how far life has gone. I said, wow, that is becoming a potential for me. So for me, it was the journey. It was more about taking chances, doing something, liking what you do, learning from it. And I can't stress this enough. A perpetual learner, keep learning things, and that expands your horizon, what you want to do. I didn't think of it as in this corporate structure, I'm stymied. The two times I felt stymied, I actually, as I said, I'm not going to say this here one time, I actually resigned from the organization twice, or was prepared to resign twice, because I was no longer satisfying my desire to learn and build and be responsible. But this might surprise you. As the CEO, it never stops. I don't know how to explain it. I don't think I could be a CEO for 14 years if I wasn't always learning and challenging myself. I think CEOs fail when they stop challenging themselves, when they stop thinking about the world as being their given domain. No, you have too many constituencies that can take you down. You have too many people you're responsible for, too many people who can direct something to you. So to be successful long-term as a CEO, you have to constantly have that hunger and that desire, because if not, people will see it. And if they see it, they'll stop following. right? You can only lead if people want to follow. When people see that you don't have the desire to lead anymore, they will lead the walk. And they will help you to walk. So I don't explain other than it's not just the challenge of becoming CEO, it's the challenge of staying engaged at a high enough intensity where you're really continuing to have an impact in your role. I think that's kind of why our country has a limited term on the president of the United States, because it would be very dangerous if it's not that.
Have time for one more question?
How you doing? So this could be a very simple or very complicated question. What's your daily routine?
What's my what?
Your daily routine from like the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep.
I don't sleep much, to be honest. I don't get a lot of sleep. I probably thrive on 5 hours, 6 hours max. Sometimes less, but 5, 6 on average. Even on days when I don't have to get up, so my body clock gets up. I like to work out, so my time is my personal time, my ability to keep myself healthy. I always do that in the morning. So I use my early morning hours to do that. I also said to you, I'm part of a German company. They're in Europe, they're 6 hours ahead of me. So I use the early morning hours almost every day. First thing I do is I'm on my phone and I'm checking emails and stuff like that. Just anything I need to get to right now. I'll have a cup of coffee in the morning and I'll do my workout. Normally, sometimes it's too early a day start that I can't do that. But the average day that's right. Hardly ever will do the workout in the afternoon or in the morning. There's too many things in the day. From that point forward, again, I'm going to give you the pre-COVID world because it's changed a bit. It doesn't matter. It's the same. A lot of meetings, but meetings more. I don't like big group meetings because they don't. For me, that's not the. I'm trying to get no information. Trying to get to know people. So I don't have lots of. I keep my direct reports, for example. I have 9 direct reports. I keep our one-on-one conversations to 20 minutes. No more, 10 minutes. And I do it purposely because I want to know the conversation we have is crisp, to the point, and let's go on with it. If we have extra time, great. But I find that you can keep most good conversations to that amount of time. So I try to balance my schedule with as many things as I can do in a day with time commitments on it. The day is not it's not a fixed day. It doesn't, other than early morning start, the bulk of it can end at 5 o'clock, but if you want until 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, depends on what's going on. You have to be flexible enough to make those adjustments. That's my typical day. And I try to make time for family. I do make time for family. If I don't, my wife makes time for family. So it's going to happen. Or my kids make time for it, which is good. So you also have to have good balance, because otherwise you just lose perspective. So every day is different. It's not a Monday through Friday role. Every day is something. But I use the time effectively when I can. If I have an hour, I can devote to something Sunday or Saturday, doesn't matter. I'll do it. But my routine during the week, I try to keep at least some of it in some control. Before COVID, it was 40%. I'm saying this earlier. Before COVID, my week was 40% on the road. I haven't been on the road that much, and that's actually made my days shorter because all of a sudden I didn't have all that stuff in between. But they say, I think this is true, as busy as you feel like you are, the busier you are, generally speaking, hopefully, the more effective you are as well. You can find a way to keep busy and focused. That helps a lot. It helps with thinking through, I think.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. Obviously, this conversation could continue for another 30 minutes or more easily. So I thank you again for being with us today.
My pleasure.
Thank you.